Great. I leave you in good hands. Dr. Ruth Lawrence.
Good morning. I want to say I represent the class of 1949. Now, you'll notice there's no reference in any of the things that are out for you to the class of 49, but we were a great group. And when you see the outstanding people from the University of Rochester that we will show you in a few minutes, you'll notice there are a few people from the class of 49. But I have three partners in this gig this morning. The Larrys, Larry Jacobs, who just spoke to you, and Larry, what's your name? And they're from somewhere in the 60s. And this is Larry Nazarian down here. And we also have brought a current student, a fourth-year student, Patrick Aslan. And he doesn't have to admit he's my grandson. But his mother, Dr. Barbara Aslan, is a hematologist, oncologist, and pediatric hospitalist here at Strong. So you know everybody now. And our purpose today is to dredge up old memories. Did everybody's class began here? Yes. Yeah. I sat in the second row in the second seat the first day in September 28th, 1944. You probably weren't even born yet. That's terrible. The administration has provided for us a few slides, and we'll put them up. Hopefully, you recognize a few. Did everybody meet George Whipple? Okay. I was interviewed by George Whipple, and most people in my day were. Now the students say, who? So, now, next slide, Pat. This is the first class in 1925, and you'll notice there are a couple of women in the class, and that sort of set the mark for another 50 years. There were only a few women in each class until about 1970, I guess it was. And here are the old landmarks, the front entrance. Now, in my day, everybody walked in the front entrance, walked up the stairs into the lobby, and went wherever you were going. But that's how you got into the medical school. And now, of course, they come in over there on Elmwood Avenue in all the grandeur. Okay. And this is when they planned the hospital originally. And you'll see in this drawing that there is an R wing. Dr. Romano arrived in 1945. He spent the first year here picking out the china, planting the trees, but not teaching anybody. So my class, who started in 1945, never heard a word about psychiatry. And so we used to go and sit in the back of the classes behind us and hear their lectures. And what happened was we turned out a lot of psychiatrists. Dr. Otto Toller was in my class. Dr. Vicky Baum, Dr. Bill Combs, a slew of our class became psychiatrists. Next one. And of course, every great building has a groundbreaking affair, and Strong was no different. Now, here's some people you ought to recognize. These are all the deans. Dr. Whipple, of course. And when Dr. Whipple stepped down, Dr. Anderson became dean. Now, my maiden name was Anderson. So the first thing as I stood there and he was introduced, he walked over to me and said, "Hi, cousin." And that's how I knew Donald Anderson all those years. Lowell Orbison was a pathologist. There was a tendency to pick pathologists. Frank Young, who went to Washington, our beloved Bob Joint, who just died a few months ago, and Marshall Lickman, Goldsmith, Ed Hundred, who was here a very brief period of time, Dr. Gusick, who's now chair at University of Florida in Gainesville, where one of my sons is on the faculty. So he went from one Lawrence clan to another, and our current dean you had a chance to hear from, Dr. Tubman. Now, Dr. Kornberg, of course, got all sorts of recognition, and a lot in the new buildings are named after Dr. Kornberg. Dr. Orbison was another pathologist and was dean. Dr. Raymond Gramiak, please notice, he graduated in 1949. He was one of our classmates, and he's managed to maintain notoriety. Even as a student, he was interested in radiology, and so as his project, he did imagery of every part of the body, and he would ask members of the class to sit for or stand for some part of their body to be imaged. I was the knee. And then, of course, Dr. Romano, we'll go see Dr. Romano's place, his garden, his building, his legacy. And George Engel was the other psychiatrist that became very well known. They worked hand in glove together on many issues, and really gave us our label as being concerned about the whole patient, being concerned about the patient as a person, and that has lasted until this day. Now, this is just a collection of some of the alumni and what they did. I'll point out for you David Smith and Porter Anderson, who developed the immunization against flu B, and you don't hear about flu B anymore. When I was a medical student, we saw so many subdural hematomas from flu B. We saw so much meningitis, and we saw so much death. It's hard for the current. Did you ever hear of flu B, Pat?
No.
I thought not. Pat's going to be a pediatric neurologist if all the stars line up. So if he hasn't heard of flu B, nobody's heard of it. And so there were some marvelous contributions made by graduates here. And our dear friend Arthur Moss, I don't know if he's around today. I haven't seen him, but his contributions to cardiac arrhythmias and cardiology in general have been huge. And let's see who's here. I saw Dr. Burton, so he's here. Maybe you've had a chance to talk to him. Wonderful orthopod. And Dr. Satcher, of course, was one of our Surgeon Generals and has made a great contribution to medicine. And So we see others here who have given different parts of medicine a great boost. Oh my. Well, I'll let you read the report and all those quotes. I won't try and duplicate them, but know that Rochester people have been speaking out and being quoted and being referenced. Okay? And the Saunders Research Building is across Crittenden Boulevard. Fantastic building, full of community researchers, and the Kornberg Medical Research Building is attached over there. You've been in that part since the class of '62. Auditorium is in the Kornberg building. And as you may recognize, all of these things are built on the space that had the baseball field. And you went out the back door by the dean's office and played baseball. You can't do that anymore unless you want to break a few windows. And these are all demonstrations of what we've done. And the Gallisano Children's Hospital is fantastic. They are not very keen on having people tour it, so they stop you. In fact, if you're not on service in the Gallisano Children's Hospital, they stop you. You can't just wander over there. But it's because it's such an incredible place. And there are Gallisano Children's Hospital all down the East Coast. If you go to Florida, you may notice a few Gallisano Children's Hospitals. Mr. Gallisano is a wealthy, generous man who rose up from poverty, literally, to be this multi-billionaire, and he's very generous with his money. And so every town he goes to, he builds the hospital. And this is one of them. We're very proud to do that. And, of course, College Town is all that stuff on Mount Hope. You know, there weren't many things when we were here. A couple of little restaurants, stuff like that. But you certainly didn't go to Mount Hope to have fun. You tried to find some other place in Rochester. But now it's a whole community of different resources economically, grocery stores and other things like that. So the student, do you go to?
College Town. Yeah, College Town for me is pretty awesome. They have a lot of restaurants, bars, mostly the bars. And yeah, so it brought back a lot more fun things to do around Mount Hope versus the parking lot that was made there a while ago. So yeah, I find it very cool, but there's still stuff that my parents even remember, like the Mount Hope Diner is still open. I don't know if that was around when you guys were at school, but yeah, there's still a lot of small things that have stayed around that area that are pretty interesting.
And the bookstore has migrated there.
Yeah, and that was an interesting choice, but the bookstore is very nice. And yeah, all of College Town is very well done and very cool. So if you have time, I would say just go walk it because it's very pretty, just aesthetically.
Yeah. Larry?
I just wanted to point out that actually the very first spot on the tour is if you look up at that corner there and look at the stairs, that is where one of my classmates fell asleep during Dr. Emmel's histology presentation and quite subtly rolled down the stairs. causing the end of the lecture and much hilarity among the rest of us. He did eventually graduate. Let's see. I'm going to ask Tim to help us divide that. Ask Tim to help us divide that. So, Tim, where is he?
Well, I wanted to comment, make some other comments.
I'm sorry.
Actually just going to make a couple
Okay.
more comments about the room if there's
Okay,
time.
yeah, go right ahead.
Well, I just wanted you to also look around this room. It looks a lot different than we were students. Remember the wooden seats? Ooh, they were uncomfortable. And this opened out to an escape. This was a fire escape. And and in the back there, that also opened out to a fire escape. And when the lecture wasn't too sharp, people would creep out that door and go down the fire escape. But they have made it very elegant. This is a wonderful painting of Dr. Whipple, but they have improved this immensely, and we still meet here. So.
Is this where the students sit for lectures?
No, we have very few lectures in this auditorium, really at all. A lot of them happen in what's called the case method room, which is by the med school entrance, and Adolph, which is also kind of in that
I
direction.
was liking the TVs. I was just wondering if I need to donate more money or.
The answer is yes.
Those are black and white, I think.
It's interesting that in the education of medical students today, a lot of the lectures have been replaced by what is known as active learning, where they'll get together in smaller groups and often case-based discussions with a lot of interaction and working on your own sometimes and then bringing it back to the group. So that's been a real trend. I just wondered if we could get some help from the advancement people in dividing into two groups. Those who want to go see Robin Roberts, make sure they're in Dr. Jacobs' group, and then Dr. Lawrence and I and Patrick will be in another group.